Well, hello there from an island, our island. We're on a big island here in northern Minnesota, and it is late fall. The leaves are in full, and I've been taking lots of saunas. The lake is cooling down now, and that's what I've been up to. And this afternoon, I had a great conversation with Ashley Mason. Who is Ashley Mason? Well, she earned her PhD in clinical psychology from the University of Arizona. She is an Associate Professor of Psychiatry in the Wheel Institute for Neurosciences and the UCSF, that's the University of California, San Francisco, Osher Center for Integrative Health. She is a clinical psychologist and directs behavioral treatment for insomnia at the UCSF Osher Center Clinic. She is director of the UCSF Sleep Effect and Eating SEA lab. She is the co-director of the UCSF Center for Obesity Assessment, Study, and Treatment. She is primarily a researcher, but also treats patients for insomnia within the Osher Center Sleep Clinic. In our chat today, you'll learn about her work surrounding whole body hyperthermia. Her 2023 Brain Mind Summit presentation touches upon sauna and how heat treatment may have a positive impact on depression by regulating body temperature. Reintegrating thermal stress could be an effective approach to treating some individuals with depression. There is a correlation between core body temperature and depression. Editing thermal stress out of our lives via air conditioning and climate-controlled indoor living has put us in what she calls the narrow band, when all along acute heat stress could help us. So this is a great chat. I've been wanting to get Ashley, over to you to listen to her and her great energy and ambition. She's got many studies in the works, and you'll learn a little bit more behind the curtain about what it takes to be a researcher in the field, and all the people involved and how much work it really is. So I'm a big supporter of her and her work, and I think you will also get a big charge out of the studies that she's undertaking right now. So without further ado, I'm pleased to welcome Ashley Mason to Sauna Talk. This show is brought to you by the Build Your Own Sauna ebook from saunatimes.com. Be it indoor electric, backyard wood-fired, or some combination in between, this is a practical guide that has helped hundreds, more likely thousands of would-be sauna enthusiasts as they realize their own authentic sauna dreams. With this easy-to-follow guide, we can settle into what's best for the individual. This book was written for you. As many of us know, the sauna building journey is often as rewarding as the destination. And as you talk with others, you'll find that this is the guide that can cut through a lot of the pedantic chatter and help you, just like with good heat, get right to the bones of sauna goodness. Interested? Please go to saunatimes.com and click the page at the top called ebook for more information. As bonus, for the month of August 2023, 50% of all book sales are being donated to Sauna Aid. Now, on to the show. So welcome to Sauna Talk, Ashley Mason.
Thank you.
So great to have you.
Great to be here.
We've had this scheduled for many months, haven't we?
Probably at least many weeks, if not a few months. Yeah.
And
so it's great to finally be here.
and to say that you are busy is an understatement, right? I mean, is your whole day scheduled out every day, or tell us what a day in the life is for Ashley Mason?
A day in the life. Yes, I'm heavily scheduled. And that's probably because I'm 118% time. So I see patients typically in the evenings. A lot of times patients can't be seen during the day because they have jobs and lives and kids and all these things. So
Right.
I see patients after hours typically, and I have an insomnia clinic. And then during the day, I'm a full-blown researcher running
Mhm.
clinical trials,
Mhm.
doing studies, publishing papers, writing grants, quite
Mhm.
busy.
Mhm.
A day will look like anywhere from 4 to 6 hours of meetings. And then, of course, I need to actually do the work, which sometimes there's just not very much time left after all of those meetings. But doing the actual work, the writing, the preparation of reports, and designing studies and all that has to
Right.
happen sometime. Um,
Yes, and it's all on your
yeah.
shoulders. How many
hmm
staff are with you and under you for the work you're doing and the studies that you're undertaking?
Good question. So it really varies. It expands and contracts with different studies. Um, but I pay physicians who are medical monitors on the study. I pay a statistician. I pay a database designer manager. I have research staff, two or three of them, who interact with participants, help with data collection, run the actual studies. I have co-investigators and collaborators who I pay off of my grants so that we buy some of
Mm,
their time to participate in the different studies. But I have a lot of people. A lot of people are on payroll at different percentages off
mm.
of grants that I have to help keep the lights on. Yeah,
Wow, wow. And
yeah,
grant writing is on you. I mean, this is
yeah,
this is a key
hmm
part of and to keep the engine running
yeah,
needs the fuel, and the fuel is the money to
yes,
run studies. Yeah. So
yes.
this, yeah, not to sound simplistic, but this is what you do, not a day in the life, but this is your career.
It's what I do. Yeah. And the grants might come from the government. They might come from foundations. We've gotten very fortunate and we've had some wonderful philanthropists decide to throw some money into the ring to help get science done faster.
Mhm.
And we take money from all kinds of sources to keep the lights on and keep the show on the road. But yeah, a day will look like 4 to 6 hours of meetings, two 2 to 3 hours of email. I try and get like 1 to 2 hours of like solid work in, but it often doesn't happen. And I find that I do my best thinking and my best, creative work, the grant writing, the actual paper writing, on the weekends when no one's bothering me. uh,
Yes.
and, um, and yeah, so it's a busy life. I have two plants. They're both alive still. Yeah.
Great. And you've probably answered this question 1,000 times, be it at a cocktail party or, to some of the benefactors looking to fund your studies. But your work right now, please describe your research and what you're undertaking right currently.
Sure. So there's a few different projects at different stages right now in the lab. We just finished a major project looking at whole body hyperthermia, which is like heating up the whole body using infrared heat, combining that with a talk therapy to see if this mind and body therapy could help people with depression. And we just finished our second of two trials that were funded by the government and the
Hmm.
foundation, on that work, and we're analyzing those data. Literally hot off the press. We literally had our last participant in the lab a couple of weeks ago,
Great,
and we're
great.
sending off all of the blood and all of the things to the labs in the coming weeks. It's been a little bit delayed because of the hurricane season. We don't want to put
Hmm.
blood in the mail when the dry ice might fail and anything else. So
Mm.
we're sending that off soon. Um, and then we just got some National Institutes of Health funding and some more foundation funding to also do a mind and body treatment for insomnia, where we are going to mail people infrared heating blankets that they will use at home to do a body heating practice in the hours before bed. And they're also going to do something called cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. So we're going to combine this body practice of heat and the mind practice of CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, and see if we can help people who have difficulty falling asleep at the start of the night and just lay awake for hours and hours.
Hmm.
So we're starting that study up. And then we're also still analyzing data that we've collected during COVID from about 65,000 people who were wearing wearable devices, and we were measuring their body temperature in that
Hmm.
study, among other things. We were interested in disease detection, but one of my favorite papers that we've ever published from the lab showed that people with higher body temperature were those who had more depressive symptoms. So showing that people who run hot tend to also have more depression. It's interesting, how can we cool them down? Well, body heating therapies are one way to actually cool people down, and we can get into why that would be. But that paper had an analysis with like 20 something thousand people in it, and that's the largest analysis of its kind that's ever been done. Not 20, 30 people, not even just 300 people, it was 20,000 people.
Wow.
So
Fascinating.
so we've got different arms in the study or arms in the lab where we're analyzing data that we've already collected that exists. We're launching new clinical trials. I'm in the phase right now where I'm writing a couple of different grants. We also have a study we're about to start with firefighters that's particularly exciting. We're going to bring firefighters into the lab, and we're going to do whole body heating with them with infrared heat. And we're going to collect, blood, sweat, and urine. Well, definitely the blood and the urine. We're working on how we're going to do the sweat right now, but we're going to collect that and see if there is anything to be said for these detox, headlines that you read in the news about how you can use infrared heat or sauna or what have you to detox from chemicals. Well, there's really we need data for that. So we're going to bring in people who are exposed to chemicals, firefighters, and see what we see. And that was just funded by a philanthropy. And hopefully with those pilot data, we'll be able to apply for some government funding. But that's just a smattering of, those are the things that we're focused on, I'd say, for this fall and winter. And it's
so catching up to catching it is a lot, and catching up. I'm exhausted just with your whole layout of product. I mean, I thought maybe you were doing one study and then writing grants for the second study, but I think I caught 4 different studies and projects on the table at this one time. Fascinating. I can understand how busy you are, with these different studies at different phases along the.
You have to have it that way because if I finish a study, I need to have money to pay everybody immediately, and it takes 12 to 16 months to get a grant once you submit it from the government, let alone So you have to be submitting things before you're done with the next thing and keep the ball rolling.
Lovely. I want to bring 2 names I want to bring in. First, a big shout out to Mikkel Alland, who you met up with him. You had some lunch, and I have to give him credit in a way because I think he was the catalyst to get you and I together. And then we're going to talk about the second person here, Dr. Charles Raison, Chuck, and how Chuck and I became, I guess you could call us fast friends, or we connected, really quickly and spent some time in Madison with him and literally on the sauna bench and stuff. So shout out to Mikkel. And I'd like to bring Chuck into the conversation about your background with Chuck. And then I'm going to turn over to you. But one other thing is I sense that the lane with you and Chuck is about depression and anxiety. Is that too pigeonholed, or is that the lane in which both of you lay focus with your research?
I would say that Chuck always wants to explain it all. He'd say he'd like to zoom out and focus on 12 bazillion different things. I would say for me, I would need to throw insomnia in there. I'm really interested in sleep health because if you're not able to sleep, what can you do? Like sleep is a 24-hour a day issue, and I think it's one of the pillars of wellness and health. So it's something I'm interested in, and then I've written grants for and gotten grants to study as well. And I am very interested also in general mind-body treatments for ailments. So whether that's figuring out how can we help get PFAS out of people's bodies who were exposed to it using, different combinations of heat therapy. I mean, that's interesting to me. I supervise postdoctoral fellows who have different interests, and I'm interested in what they're interested in. So people might wonder, why are you doing a study with firefighters to see if sauna or infrared heat can help them detoxify? You're just a psychologist. And my answer is, well, I am just a psychologist, but I do know how to do a clinical trial. And
beautiful.
I do know how to collaborate with, I collaborate with physicians where I need to. And for a 65,000 person COVID detection study, I woke up a lot of times wondering, why am I doing this? But if you look at our big publication from that study, it had 54 authors from more than 30 universities, where we recruited physicians from their emergency rooms to wear, temperature measuring devices and see if we could detect when they were getting COVID. So tend to be more of a connector, and I collaborate with people who know things that I don't. I don't
Mhm.
have, medical training. I don't have a lot of these things. So I'm just fortunate to have collaborators like Chuck and others who I can work with when I get interested in things. Because what happens
Beautiful.
with me is I get interested in something and then I can't let it go and I got to do
Yeah.
something. And that's why when you look at my CV, you might say, what is she doing? She's doing a lot, like I've published papers on lipids after people do ketogenic diets. I've published papers on, mindfulness. Like who knows, right?
Hmm.
Whatever I was interested in at the time, I tend to go for it. So
Beautiful. Let me put a pause on that.
yeah,
That's great, Ashley. Thanks for that. Um, Chuck Raison, how did you meet
yeah,
him? Explain to listeners the
sure,
history
yeah,
and where you at. Go ahead.
yeah. So I believe it was. I always mess this up. I think it was 2008, and I was a graduate student at the University of Arizona, and Chuck was visiting and giving a talk. And everybody read ahead of time what he was going to talk about. And he had just published a paper in 2007 called Cytokines Sing the Blues, which was this theory of depression as an inflammatory disorder.
Hmm.
And I was just captivated by this. I thought this is so fascinating. So he gets to Arizona to give his talk, and he ends up giving a talk mostly about rodents. And um, I was just, you know, captivated. I was enraptured by this. I mean, the implications of what he was saying I thought were so exciting. But I think a lot of other people's eyes glazed over. Like he's talking about a lot of rats, and we're psychologists.
Hmm.
So lucky me, that meant that when it came time to take him out to lunch, I got to take him out to lunch. Nobody else really. People weren't really like wanting to talk necessarily about the rat studies. I mean, people wanted to talk about the cytokine sing the blues study, and they did. But then I was just so interested in some of these things that he was doing. So we just had a fantastic lunch, and I thought, my gosh, this guy, like I've got to figure out how to work with this guy. And so time goes by, and we finally figured out that he had some data that I could use for my dissertation. So I flew out to Emory actually for a few weeks, and I did I collected, got my dissertation data together, and worked with him on my dissertation. And by the time that I was graduating, he then came to Arizona as a professor from Emory, and then I left and I came up to the Palo Alto healthcare system in Stanford for my residency in clinical psychology. So we had this departure where he was still in Arizona and I was in California for many years, but we always kept in touch at conferences. We saw each other all the time. And then in 2016, when that big paper came out, the whole body hyperthermia and depression paper that he published
Hmm.
with Janssen and those folks, I remember calling him and just saying, Chuck, what are we going to do? This is nuts. These effects are huge. What are you going to do? Like what? And when he explained that the research was actually going to end because of bureaucracy and debacles, I said, my gosh, this cannot be. And
Hmm.
that's when I began running around San Francisco, giving my friends rectal thermometers and saying, everybody, let's go see if we can get hot enough to figure out how we're going to do this study here. And then we just, he said, all right, you take the torch. He went off into psychedelic land a bit. And, uh, you know, I kind of took over just leading this stuff. And I really got going in 2018 when figured out there was an infrared heating device that I could get that was similar to what Chuck used in the 2016 study.
Hmm.
And we were able to do it without a lot of the red tape that Chuck had to do.
Hmm.
So it was off to the races. And then, you know, probably since 2018, I don't know if a week's gone by that we haven't had a meeting or a conversation or talked about something.
That's great. Thanks for that. It's so cool
Yeah.
to hear that background. The word
Mm-hmm.
mentorship kind of comes to mind there. I mean, you
Oh
found
yeah,
a mentor in
big
help.
time.
Yeah, and I when I'm with both of you and we've had a couple Zoom calls and I just find the rapport between you two something special, something natural and cool. And it's
Yeah,
been many years now.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's what you call one of the lifetime mentors. Not everybody gets those,
Mm,
but I'm fortunate, and I
yeah.
know I'm fortunate that I've
Oh.
gotten that. Yeah.
Sweet. Good.
Hmm.
Let's talk about this hyperthermia and
Mm,
101.3 a little bit and raising the core
mm,
body temperature, and how this sort of gets labeled or roped into sauna, the word sauna
mm,
and the act of that.
mm.
There's not really a question here. I'll just kind of throw that out to you. Is there something that you'd like to share with listeners? I mean, this is sauna talk, so we know who we're speaking to. Um,
Mhm, mhm.
are you cool with it? Are you cool with how
Yeah.
maybe the media talks about your work and calling it sauna? And what's your opinion of that? Like in your
So
approach?
it's really tricky because I appreciate the definition of sauna that is upheld by so many people and how important that is to their worldview and understanding. My perspective is that I call what I'm doing in the lab right now whole body hyperthermia, whole body heating, body heating.
Hmm.
We tend to, I try to keep it pretty technical. Obviously, I cannot tell a news reporter who has a word count problem to write whole body hyperthermia instead of sauna when they're online and they're looking it up and they're saying, well, infrared, can't I just say infrared sauna? And if you go shopping online and you Google or you search for infrared sauna, this term is there, it's everywhere, right? So then it becomes a matter of, well, okay, what am I what am I concerned about? I want to communicate these findings to people, right? And what Sauna Talk listeners probably are so much more advanced and in their knowledge and understanding of sauna and cultural heat practices and all these things. But what I would ask people to do is just for one quick moment to put on the shoes of maybe like an average American, maybe in not a coastal state, who, when I say whole body hyperthermia, might run away scared and think that sounds like a scary medical procedure. Oh no, right? What I want to do is I want to reach people and help them understand that what I'm doing in my research is I'm heating up the body, right? We're heating up bodies. And if that means that sometimes the word sauna is misused to communicate what we're doing, to explain it, am I really upset about that? No, I can get over that, right? Does that mean it's the right thing to do? No. But um, when I'm trying to explain this work to people and I say whole body hyperthermia, and they say, what in the world is that? And I say, have you ever been in a sauna? It's like heating up the body, right? This doesn't strike me as like a huge devastation problem, right? Um, so that said, if a participant in our studies would say, oh, I've got a sauna session coming up on Tuesday, I need to reschedule it, are my staff telling them it's actually a whole body hyperthermia session and da, da, da. No, right? We're not doing that. But when I talk about the work with reporters in scientific communications, do I do my best to make sure I'm explaining this is whole body heating, where we're heating up the body using infrared heat, which is not the same as, yes, I
Hmm.
do. And I also use a terrible analogy. And I hope that people don't get too angry at me about this because I think it's not a great analogy, but this seems to really help people understand. When you cook food in an oven, you put the food in the oven and the air is hot and the hot air is cooking the food, right? You could burn yourself on the inside of an oven, right? You can also cook food in a microwave. But when you put the food in the microwave and you push start, and then you push stop, and you go in the microwave to get the food, you're not going to burn your hand on the inside of the microwave. It's not that hot in there, right? But the food's hot. It's been heated through a totally different process than the food in the oven, right? So crudely we can think about a traditional heating element in a sauna, the hot rocks, right? More like an oven. we can think about the infrared heat process, right? A little bit more like the microwave, right? These are very, very different. And so sometimes, depending on the audience, I will use that to try to explain it. But that said, do I think what I'm doing in my lab at the Osher Center for Integrative Health within UCSF is technically sauna? No, I don't. Do I want to be doing a sauna study in a real sauna? Yes. Do I plan to? Yes. But is that what I've published? No.
Beautiful.
That's a
Okay.
long-winded answer to your question.
Well, Ashley, I love your answer, and I could pick apart, or I could pull apart a few of the components, and staying with maybe the cooking analogy type thing. Do you think that there is a better way to cook food? In the staying with the analogy, like if you okay, so the outcomes that you are testing for in San Francisco, there is it depression based? Like what are the biomarkers, and what are you testing for in this study?
Yeah. So in the studies that we just finished, we were looking at depressive symptoms, right? Self-reported depressive symptoms.
Perfect.
We collected blood also to see if there were any biological signatures of changes in depression symptoms following heat therapy. But again, that blood is in the is in the freezer at the lab, right? It
Yes.
hasn't been sent yet. We haven't analyzed that yet. We need to. From the second study, the big study, we still need to do that. So we were primarily focused on changes in depressive symptoms, but even before that, we were focused on feasibility. Can we do this? Are people willing to do this? Do they like this? Those were key research questions, because you could develop the best treatment in the world for depression, but if nobody likes it and nobody's going to do it, who cares?
Yeah, right. So whole body hyperthermia, testing for depressive symptoms, and see if heating your body can make people or help people become less depressed. I mean, it's a very simplistic framework. Okay.
It's pretty simple framework.
Yes. And I do want to call out to your creativity and finding a way to get people's core body temperature up that was economical, consistent, functional. Let's talk about that quickly. Like, what did you find? How did you discover it? And to tell listeners what the heating process was for patients, for test subjects.
So, so much like what Chuck did in 2016, where they heated people up using a Heckel hyperthermia device, the H23000, that's a German medical hyperthermia device. And in order to use something like that in the US, you have to have FDA approval, right? It's a very specific thing. And I certainly didn't have the capability to do that at UCSF, given my rank and stature at the time, the resources available. So I did what most people do. I went on the internet and I started looking around at sauna blogs, right? What you might call whole body heating blogs, but people who were reviewing all of these different types of devices. And I contacted one blogger and I said, hey, I'm looking for something that will do something like this. It looks like you professionally test these things for a living. Do you have a recommendation? And he recommended, check out the Clearlight Sauna Dome. See if you can get one of those. It looks pretty similar. And it just so happens that they were over in Berkeley, right across the water from me. So I picked up the phone, gave him a call. And I said, so I'm a, junior professor. I want to do this thing. I have no money. Heard you have one of these things. And the guy's like, sure, I'll bring you one in my truck. So, within days, I had one of these saunas in my, I never saw these, what they call an infrared sauna dome, right? I had one of these infrared domes at the Osher Center by then. And then Chuck mailed me his rectal probe, which is worth more than my Prius. I'm just going to say it, that here,
Okay.
these are not cheap. I like to think my car is not cheap, but worth more than my Prius. He mailed it to me, so I had all the equipment that I needed. And then I was able to start my 1.5-year process of convincing the UCSF Institutional Review Board, or the IRB, that this would not be harmful. And I did a safety study in what you call healthy normals to show that we could heat people up to 101.3 rectally without causing all kinds of drama. Because the IRB was quite concerned that, you're going to have someone in there for more than 20 minutes, but people aren't supposed to be in a steam room or sauna for more than 20 minutes. And so we had to just prove all of the safety stuff and show all of these things. And that's how we got to be able to do it. And Clearlight's been fantastic. They've supported our research with, the sauna domes. They kept manufacturing them. There was one point they thought they might not anymore. I said, please don't stop. And luckily they kept doing it. And so we still have them available for the research.
Right. Excellent. So these are infrared domes, I thought they were blankets, but not a blanket. It's a space age chamber dome. And now,
but I am using blankets for a different study, and that's a different product.
Yes. Now you dig sauna. I mean, you love sauna. You've been to saunas, Archimedes, others. I mean, you like it, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's Archimedes is a trip.
Yes.
That's I think that although people like to think that that's probably how it's traditionally done, I don't think that's quite how it's traditionally done. That's a very co-ed sauna situation that I think you might not see in that fashion if you were to go to Russia or Finland, the way they're doing that. But I haven't been to Russia or Finland. I just have read.
Yep. Got it. So that experience of, going into a room, there's rocks, throwing water and all that, that's resonating with you and you're expanding. Yeah. I'm putting you on the spot. So I know you're interested and you are pursuing research using these facilities, like this kind of facility for more study. So
it would be great.
Yeah. Do you have an instinct as to, I mean, you've done, how many different subjects, or do you call them subjects or patients or participants? Yeah. How many different participants have rolled through with all of your studies? If you just had to throw a number, thousands,
all of what
hundreds?
Kind of studies?
Yeah, all of your work, like how many different participants?
All of my studies?
Yeah.
Well, I had one study with 65,000 people in it.
Jeez. Okay, so just the whole body hyperthermia study. Just throw a number
just
that
the whole
way.
body eating studies?
Yeah.
Maybe 75.
Okay. So what I'm trying to frame, I feel like a lawyer here. I'm asking all of these like circumstantial questions to you, but what I'm leading up to is, do you have an instinct here as to, with your next work, as you do more work, that whether an infrared blanket in a clinical environment juxtaposed against a sauna, perhaps by a mountain stream or in nature, or with other more of a community based, I mean, like, do you try to stay away from instincts or things you're trying to prove, and do you have I guess I could say, some sort of predictors to what studies could do with different facilities?
So I'm in the middle of San Francisco. I don't have a place where I can have a beautiful sauna in nature. I mean, if you have $30 million to donate so that I can do that, like, I'm here for it, right? Like, I'll give you the number, bank routing, we're good to go, right? But that's a really hard study to do. Now, there's one study that I'm looking at doing that I can't talk about today, but it would involve literally renting out an entire huge sauna space, where there would be a sauna with rocks and a cold plunge outside and everything else, right? But finding that kind of availability is very, very difficult. And when you have to think about how research is funded in our country and how healthcare works, right? So if I'm trying to develop a treatment for depression and want to give it to people, and I want insurance to pay for it, this is difficult to sell as, a community sauna thing, where it's like, what if you go to the community sauna and you go at a time where nobody's there? Does it work? Oh no. Like, what if don't like have community with the people who are there? Like, oh, what if community is part of the treatment? Well, how do we prescribe community? I mean, this whole thing is very difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, Do I think that it's a great thing to do? And do I wish that we had a culture of sauna bathing in the US? And do I think it would help us feel more connected, less lonely, be a healthier society, all these things? Absolutely. But getting the opportunity to study that
Mm.
is very difficult because of what the government is interested in, like genetics and your
Mm.
cells. And
Mm.
I don't care about that stuff. But
Mm.
I am interested in, can we? So for the study that we just did, it was combining cognitive behavioral therapy for depression, an 8-session manualized protocol that you do with a therapist, and you learn skills to work with distressing thoughts, work with cognitive distortions, right? Work with these negative thought patterns. And we give you heat treatment as well. So we're addressing the mind and the body. And then hopefully you're leaving the treatment and you've got some of these new skills and you're able to use these new skills in the world. And we've got your mind and your body in a place where you can start to do things like, for example, let's say someone's very depressed. They're not interacting with the community. They're not, interacting with their loved ones. They're not doing things that they used to like to do. And if we help them feel better
Mm-hmm.
through using the infrared heat, giving them tools, then when they're done with treatment, the whole idea is they are going out with their friends. They are reading books they like to read. And they're getting these positive reinforcements from these activities that keep them engaged in these activities in a feed forward fashion going forward, right? That's great. I think that sauna, could be a feed forward activity like that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in people's everyday lives. Um, I just have not figured out how to fund the kind of research that
Yeah.
could show that,
Well said.
even though it's things
Mhm.
we already know.
Mhm. No,
The
no, no.
bar of
Yeah.
whether it's true is science in this country.
I think one of the points in that is that if we're developing a study with sauna, as we know sauna, and that is there's too many variables. But
Mhm.
what you've been able to do is isolate through your clinical work. You've been able to isolate variables, temperature, controlling for all kinds of things, like through the environment, through the but
Mhm. Mhm.
heat as heat, right? Like what is the connection? What are you finding as a connection about depression and getting the core body temperature up? Why is it working for
Yeah,
people?
yeah. So there's we don't necessarily know this yet. The jury is still out, but there is a body of literature out there starting from the 80s that shows this interesting correlation between higher body temperature and greater depressive symptoms. And when people's depressive symptoms get better, their body temperature also moves down. Interesting, right? It doesn't seem to matter necessarily how they got better, whether they got ECT, they did psychotherapy, they took antidepressants. If they got
Hmm.
better, their body temperature drops. So
Okay.
this link may be bi-directional, right? And one thing we know is that the body's way of self-cooling is sweating, right? And I'm sure you and Mikhail, everybody talks about this all the time, right? But and then there's also the people on the internet who say, "Oh no, sweating is detox." Well, we'll see. We're going to study that. We're going to find out. Well, stay tuned, right? But we know that the process of sweating is to cool the body down. Okay, and when people are too hot, they're not sweating so well, right? They're not cooling their body down. They're running too hot. But if we put them in a whole body heating situation where we are making you so hot that we are forcing your body to start sweating,
Okay. Hmm.
then we can force your body to start cooling itself down. And what
Wow.
Chuck found in one of his terrific papers from 2013 with Hanush was that they measured the body temperature of people after a single whole body hyperthermia session for 5 days. And they measured their depression symptoms also. And they saw that the reduction in their body temperature correlated with the reduction in their depression symptoms in those 5 days.
Mm.
Beautiful, right? Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. So then the idea is here, like, okay, maybe we're causing people's body temperature to go up and they're engaging in a self-cooling process. So they're cooling off, then they might be feeling better. And when people feel better, then they start to do more things that will elicit those positive reinforcements. Oh, I'm feeling better. I'm going to go out with my friends. Oh, wow, I went out with my friends. That was really fun. And someone asked me if I wanted to go out again in 2 days. I'm going to do it again, right? This feed forward thing that happens.
Hmm.
And it's just kind of where we're picking to intervene on the cycle, right? We don't know if you need to intervene by helping people think differently, which then will lead to them feeling better and improve their body temperature regulation? Or do we just intervene on the body temperature regulation, and that causes them to feel differently, which causes them to behave differently, which then impacts how they think, right? It's this beautiful circle.
Yes.
And what we're doing now is we're just identifying different places on the circle to intervene. And for different people, different interventions are going to be great. For example, I work, some of my grant funding is from the Department of Defense, right? And one thing you may or may not know, you likely do know, is that people who are service members are very unlikely to tell you how they're feeling. They're not going to talk about it, right? Because if they say the wrong thing, they get taken out of the theater, get embarrassed, their commander might say, all these bad things might happen. So what if we were instead monitoring their body temperature? And when their body temperature got too hot, we just said, hey, you're going to the sauna. You don't have to talk about it. You're going to the sauna, right? And then they're in the sauna, we're intervening on their body temperature, and boom, right? So maybe they don't ever need to talk about it, and I'm a psychologist. So saying that is basically, my people coming to hang me. But the point just is, I think it's a very interesting modality. I think there's a reason people have been doing this for hundreds and thousands of years across cultures. When you see the same thing across cultures, and I'm not saying it's all the same, right? Hammam is not the same thing. Sauna is not the same thing, right? But body heating practices broadly in social settings across cultures.
Yes. So the servicemen, Ashley, very stoic, not meant, they're not wired to show their feelings.
Yes. So what if we're able to instead monitor their body temperature and notice when they're actually getting warmer, and then put them in the sauna, cool them down, right? And then that impacts their mood. And it all comes down to where do we want to intervene on this circle of mood, right? Do we want to intervene on the body? Do we want to intervene on the brain? Do we want to intervene on both at the same time? It's a very interesting way of thinking about psychological problems, right? Because our brain is intrinsically part of our body.
Yeah.
And
yes. And this is over 10 years ago. In 2013, you had you did a presentation about mental health treatments and body temperature. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I misspoke. That was actually in 2023. I gave a talk at the Brain Mind Summit, and I explained some of the parallels between body heating, for example, and exercise. Like, we know exercise works for depression, right? Why might that be? Well, when you exercise, you're warming up, you're heating up your body, you're sweating, and then you're cooling down. It's a thermoregulatory workout, and it's a cardiovascular workout, right? And we know that it works for depression, but it's pretty hard to get people to go running 6 miles a day for their depression, let alone when they're not depressed, getting people to go running. I mean, this is difficult to do, right? So there's parallels between sauna and body heating, frankly, and exercise, in that they're thermoregulatory workouts. I mean, you have to think about what we're doing today, right? We're sitting in air-conditioned environments. We're sitting in, heated buildings. We have a very narrow thermoregulatory experience most of the day now. That's not how we evolved, right? So we're not giving our thermoregulatory systems a workout every day like they used to get. And so one of these hypotheses is that people with depression, their thermoregulatory, machinery, it's gotten rusty. It's not working so well. Right. So what can we do? Jumpstart it by forcing it to sweat for its very life, right? If you didn't start sweating when we put you in the infrared heating device, you would not do very well at all. You could die, right? So you do start sweating, and your body does save you. And this is one of my hypotheses. It's also, I would also know that the most common side effect of selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRIs for short, for the antidepressant, the most common side effect is excessive sweating. Has anybody ever looked whether the people who sweat are the people who get better when they take antidepressants? No. Do I wish they would? Yes. Am I going to wait for that study for the rest of my life? Probably. But the funny thing is now that Big Pharma has come out with a drug you can take with your SSRI that will stop you from sweating.
Terrible, terrible
And
stuff.
yet they didn't publish in that paper how that affected depression levels. Interesting, interesting.
Very,
So
very
I talk about that in that talk,
great.
which I can get you a link for. But
Yes,
um, but
yes,
yeah, there's it's all interesting. There,
it is. It's
we could
so.
talk for 10 hours
Oh my
about this,
gosh. And
Ben. Like it's
yeah, yeah.
forever.
I completely agree. And there's when we talk about hypotheses, do you have one as to with me and my friends, we often talk about, sauna and cold is sort of like well, it's 1 + 1 = 3, or it's peanut butter and jelly. I mean, they go hand in hand. And when you think about the Nordic countries and stuff, cold is always a part of the heat. There's
Mhm,
sauna by a lake, there's sauna and roll in the snow.
mhm,
It's integral. I mean, it's what I've been doing for close to 40 years. I always have a cold water element as part of a
mhm.
sauna routine. Do you think 1 + 1 equals 3 in this or do you think the heat is the key to jumpstart sweating and that's enough? Or do you think the
This is a
cold
great
is
question. This is a great question. So, um, when you first of all, I'm going to say we don't know, and like I'm going to start my conjectures now. Right. So, first of all, getting a person with depression to go into an infrared heating device is much easier than getting a person with depression to sit in for 5 minutes in an ice bath. Like I don't think I could convince someone to do that. First of all. Second of all, if we know that people are running too hot and we actually want their body to engage in self cooling, we probably need to use heat because that's inducing sweating, right? Putting
Mhm.
people in cold water alone individually, right? Then you're probably going to cool them off, but you're actually going to warm them up because their skin is going to sense, oh, it's cold out here. I'm going to start heating up the fire inside a little bit more, right? So that might actually have a completely different effect. But what you're
Yes.
asking about is something different. You're asking about the two together. And so there's a few different ways we can think about the two together. One is that when you are using the sauna, you're probably in the heat for longer than you're in the cold. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Yes. So this one hypothesis is that the cold actually cools off your skin enough so that then you can continue to tolerate the heat, right? I don't know if you've ever brought a rectal thermometer to the banya. I have, right?
Wow. You're
Because
more bold than I
why
am.
not? Oh, I hide it in my pocket. You're not supposed to have any electronics in there. I'm like,
Mm.
shh. But
Okay.
you can go into, they have like these little showers. You can go in and do it. But when you go into the cold, you're not really cooling your core down. You're cooling your skin down, right? Briefly for somewhere between 30 seconds, a minute ish, right? I don't want to speak for
Mhm.
you and your friends, but
Mhm.
I'm generalizing here, right? So you're cooling your skin down enough to feel not so hot. So then you can go back into the sauna and you've probably elevated your body temperature somewhere around 99.5 is that's where I get to. That's where I hang out for the whole 3 hours I'm at the banya. It's like 99.5. And it doesn't matter that I go into the cold and then I go into the heat.
Mhm.
I'm still well above 98.6-ish where I normally
Mhm.
am, right?
Mhm.
So the idea is that maybe the cold just helps you tolerate more of the heat, right? It
Mhm.
seems plausible. But you do get these kind of euphoric effects from the cold. I mean, I think it's pretty common that sauna is you finish on the cold, right? That's the last stop, right? And there are all of these brain researchers and animal researchers, and you should talk to them because I'm not them, but they will talk with you about dopamine and this and that and all these other chemicals in your brain that happen when you're cold. And cool. I don't care a lot. I care more that, yeah, you get out of that cold, you feel refreshed, you feel energized, you feel focused. It's great. Have I done the cold independently? Yeah, I like it. Like in the morning, sometimes if I've got a really early meeting. You know what? If I jump in the cold plunge before I have my meeting, I am awake. And it might be 5 a.m. my time. And Chuck's like, Ashley, you seem really awake. And I'm like, yes, I've got my coffee. Let's go. Let's talk about, right? Does it help me wake up? Yes. Do I like
Mhm.
it? Is that sauna? Definitely not. No, no, no. I'm not under that illusion, right? So can these things be used independently? Yes. Is there something that makes it 1 + 1 = 3 by using them together? Very likely, I would believe that. If you push me on the biology of it, I will lay down on the floor and say, talk to someone else. I do think that there's you get a psychological, a mood benefit. You feel, people often report that they feel like they sleep better after they do it, that they're relaxed, that their aches and pains are better. I
Mhm.
mean, there was the national sauna, the not national, the global sauna survey published in 2019 that said, why do you sauna? Now, of course, they weren't checking that they were using rocks and steam and everything else. They
Mhm.
asked people why they sauna. So their interpretation of the definition of sauna, to be
Mhm.
determined. But people said they use sauna for all types of ailments.
Mhm.
And they were significant ailments. So I do think there's something special there. It's my long-winded answer.
I like the answer, and I like the hypothesis to this. And this is what's wonderful about research, right? Like we have these intuitions, well, hey, that this makes sense. And then it's really compelling to peel the onion back and research why. Well, why is this the case? Hey, Ashley, do you know when the time to leave the hot room is?
When you feel too hot.
When, yeah, close. When the idea of an ice cold lake plunge is about the best idea you've ever heard.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, that's my friend Clint's came up with that one. Very, very
I'll take
zen,
it.
very zen,
It
and
is.
and
It's
and I
good.
I like that. And there is this thing like the rubber band theory too, which is another one I'd like to draw some thought from your side on, and that's sort of this idea of like it's like that expression, right? You want to stay in the sauna until you're really ready, right? And then you go in the cold and then, give it 15 more seconds, sort of like push the edges, push the boundaries, find your discomfort, like lean into it. And it seems more fulfilling. I don't know the physiological reasons for this, or if you have a comment to that, but that's something that as sauna nuts like we are, we like to push the edges a little bit on the extremes of temperature.
I just tell people, look, don't be stupid. Like, we don't need, no one wants to faint in the sauna. Nobody wants to call an ambulance. Like, that's not what we're here for. It's also not a competition, right?
Totally.
So if you're tired that day, you had a hard week, like, don't push it. Like, you don't do that, right? Just
Hmm.
enjoy it. Enjoy the heat, enjoy your friends, enjoy the cold. You don't need to do that. So I do worry that people get into this mentality of every
Yeah.
time I go in the sauna, I need to be timing myself and
Right.
how long can I last and all these. It's crazy. Like, A, don't wear a watch in the sauna. B, like, nobody cares, right? So
That's
I
right.
think do what feels good.
Yeah.
And if your body is telling you, you know what, I want to stick with this another 10 seconds, do it. But don't do it out of, I really want to push myself and I
Yeah.
want to beat this person, or like, that's not the right headspace to be in with sauna.
Agreed. A lot of people are attracted to the health benefits of sauna, and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
those people are athletes and
Mm-hmm.
performance
Mm-hmm.
professionals and performance and stuff. So there is this like propensity to want to do that, to say,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I'm going to time myself and I'm going to do this one longer than yesterday. And now that
Yeah.
really, really takes it off the spirit, and to a point of unhealthiness. I'm
Yeah.
convinced. And
When
one
people
more,
are timing themselves in the cold plunge at the banya, I just want to yell.
uh,
I just want to be like, what are you doing? Like,
yeah.
stop it.
Yeah, I
Oh,
always say, listen to your body, not anything else. And one more quick thing, and we talk about the facilities, and I can't wait for the next wave of what you're up to and stuff, and to stay close with you on some of these things. But the sauna itself, what is wonderful, and I'm working on an article on this with a few collaborators, is stratification good? And I really believe it is. In other words, think about this room, and you've been to banyas with multiple levels, multiple bench levels. And I have this expression. I say, it's okay to be a low bench, Larry. And I
oh.
like the idea of different temperatures within the hot room, because it isn't a contest. You're right. Like, and sometimes, and it adds to the whole like community based stuff where you got a good conversation going on or whatever, and you feel like, well, shoot, I'm almost done here. Well, it's okay to drop down a bench or two and ride it out there.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it's a matter of listening to your core, not your
Mm-hmm.
skin
Mm-hmm.
in those cases. But hey, one
Mm-hmm.
more quick thing, and I got a couple rapid fire questions. And I appreciate you being a guest today, Ashley. I've really enjoyed,
Oh, it's great to be here.
and I would like to I did this with Chuck. I want to put you on the spot for round two when the time is right. Okay, because we're
Sure.
just touching the
Sure.
surface on some things. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and where was I going? I had something interesting.
Rapid fire things you had.
Oh, I got some rapid fire for you. I'm saving those fun ones for a
Oh,
minute, but I
okay.
kind of wanted to revisit this idea of like this the core. You mentioned
Mm.
you secretly brought in your rectal thermometer to Archimedes.
Different one,
99.5.
Walgreens style. Walgreens,
Okay,
not my
okay.
five, not my Prius one. That one's in the lab. No,
Okay, no, you wouldn't mess with that one out. That stays in the lab. That's Chuck's
it's
actually,
huge.
right?
It's
Is it
huge. Yeah,
okay? Okay. Is 99.5 the max? I mean, is that the like if
no.
you took 20 people and had them in a sauna, I mean, is this it or does it get do we get hotter in the
You
sauna?
could probably get hotter. I mean, that's just how the hottest I've been able to get.
Okay.
And
Okay.
everybody's different.
Yeah.
So I think if I had it my way, I would love to just hand out, Walgreens
Hmm.
thermometers to everybody
Hmm.
going into the banya for a day, and it's not a competition.
Yeah.
Tell me how hot you get. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm intrigued about that because, when Chuck was going on about this 101.3, I was like, man, it would just be wonderful if we could get there in a traditional
Oh, I
sauna.
don't think so.
Yeah, yeah.
I really think that would be like, I think, okay, if you run a half marathon on a very hot day and then go directly to the sauna, maybe,
Hmm.
maybe. I have
Hmm.
one friend when we were testing infrared heating devices who was able to get there after running a half marathon and going in the infrared sauna for like 40 minutes. He said he felt like
Whoa.
he was going to pass out. It was
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
was like, please don't do that ever again.
Hmm.
Um, maybe, I don't know. We don't have data. I would
Hmm.
love the data.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
And
if you're at home and you're going to a sauna, go to Walgreens or CVS or your pharmacy of choice, get a regular thermometer, you know where to put it, and just see how hot you get. Email me. I'm
mm,
curious.
good. Me
I would
too.
love to know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This would be good. Well, what is the magic? I asked Chuck this too, but
Oh, yeah,
what
I
is the
know.
magic of 101.3?
There isn't. So
Okay.
the magic of it is that it's considered a mild clinical fever, right? And
Mhm.
that's defined by the people who define what fever is,
Right.
right? So
Hmm.
it's the threshold.
Hmm.
And it just happens to be what Chuck used in the first study. And so now we're rolling with it. He found that 99.5, those people didn't get as large of an antidepressant effect. They still got one, but it wasn't as large. So there seems to be something now we use Celsius actually when we talk about it, to be honest. So it's 38.5, which is
Hmm.
101.3, and then 37.5 is 995. And for me, it's like, well, is there really a difference between 38.5 and 38.4? Really? Probably not, right? Probably not. Because everybody's different, and some people actually start cooler. There was an interesting paper that came out in the last few years showing that 98.6 is kind of like, that's not really a total thing. A lot of people run slightly hotter. A lot of people run slightly cooler, right? It's
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
magic.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you have to account for where people start, and
Hmm.
also just what you were doing that day.
Hmm.
And are
Hmm.
you sick? And also, where are you in your menstrual cycle if you're a cycling woman? I got to tell you, Glenn, this is not science, but this is like, I mean, it could be science, but when I am at one phase of my cycle, I can handle way more heat in the follicular phase than I can in the luteal phase. Oh my gosh.
Hmm.
The feeling of a cold lake sounds good right now comes way faster in the luteal phase than in the follicular phase, right? So all of these things are predicated on where we are in time in a given moment
Hmm.
in our lives.
I agree with you. I mean, there's okay, so I don't have those, I don't have that cycle to reference, but
Mm,
I find sometimes with sauna, I can sit on the bench for an extended time and like bring it on, bring it on. And then other times my rounds are quite short.
yep.
Doesn't mean any one is better than the other. I'm
Mm-mm.
trying to find correlations. I do know that sometimes if my rounds are really short, I tend toward dehydration. Like that's a sign. Like, well, why am I not riding this out like I normally would? Well, I found a correlation with that,
Maybe you
dehydration.
didn't sleep great the night before. Maybe
Totally.
maybe you
Yeah.
were exposed to someone who had a cold and your body's busy dealing with that, right?
Yeah.
So many things.
I got it. Hey, Ashley, I got a few more. This is good. We're doing good?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I got a quick hypothetical for you, and it has to do with sweats. Let's just say you have Betty and Lisa, and
Mm-hmm,
Betty and Lisa are the same weight, same physical stature and all that. And Betty
hmm
and Lisa go for a brisk walk,
hmm
and Betty starts sweating pretty darn quick. And, you know, and Lisa, nothing. Um, is there any hypotheses about how one's body, mind may be better, worse? Is there a correlation between how quickly one sweats, how much one sweats, trying to take other variables out of the equation?
Well, it's difficult. So you lined up some things for me, which is um, you said that they're the same weight and height and everything else.
Hmm.
Okay. Because we know that larger people do tend to sweat more because they just produce more heat, right? They have more mass to cool down. But in general, people who are fitter do start sweating earlier. It just happens. They people who are fitter start sweating sooner in their exercise session.
Hmm.
But there's of course also whether or not one of those two ladies was more dehydrated than the other,
Correct, correct.
right?
Counting, I'd
And
say putting that off, say they're equal. I mean, if you could somehow do that, like
so they're
trying
the
to,
same place in their cycle, same
yeah,
age, same height, same hydration status, right? If
yeah.
they're different levels of fitness, one may be start sweating more quickly than the other. If they're on a brisk walk in 80-degree weather, if one of them usually goes walking in that weather,
Hmm.
that's very different than someone who doesn't usually
Hmm.
go walking
Hmm.
in that weather, right?
Yeah,
So there's all kinds of possibilities here.
yeah,
Fitness is a possibility. I mean, sweating, it doesn't necessarily, it's hard to isolate this in research,
yeah.
right? Because we don't normally just have the ability to match everybody on every single absolute thing. But in general, I think it's safe to say that if someone is fitter, they will probably start sweating sooner and
That's my
engaging the thermoregulatory
Yeah,
process.
makes sense. And I like what you said earlier about kickstarting and jump starting, through the
Mm-hmm.
research you're doing is like getting the body used to thermoregulation. In this
Mm-hmm.
in this world we live in today with air conditioning and 70 degrees everywhere we go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Lake Superior is cold. And
Yes.
we've been talking about sauna days, and
Mm-hmm.
super excited. I know Chuck is coming. You're coming, and
Mm-hmm.
do you want to? This is the first weekend of May. It's going to be on both your calendars, and we would love to have you speak. And if this event was next week, what topic would interest you the most? Now, before you answer, I want to say that there's going to be 150 people there, and 149 and a half, maybe all 150 are sauna nuts. I mean, we're sauning all day long and stuff. So read
Mm-hmm.
the audience, read the room in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So what comes to mind? What would be a topic that you would love to share with the attendees?
There's a lot of different directions to go with that. I mean, I think that is it okay. Answer me a few questions. Is this crowd interested in? They're not the kind of people who want to hear about cells, right? Like, I don't
Mm.
want to talk about like heat shock proteins and
Y-
nonsense like that, right?
Well,
It's
these
not
are
nonsense. It's very interesting to a lot of people. It just
yeah.
happens to not be what I'm so interested in.
Well, I would say a lot of the attendees are into sauna, and I know there's a lot of interest into the health benefits. Like we know this feels
Mm-hmm.
great. We know it's, helping us live happier, healthier lives. I know
Sure.
so there you go. I mean, the audience
I'd
would be
probably
very
talk
keen.
about how I'd like to talk somewhat about how and why sauna might be good for our health. And I'd probably like to talk a little bit about what we talked about today with how we've edited thermal stress out of our lives,
Very
right? And
good.
we're living in this narrow band. And
Yeah.
how can sauna help us get this thermoregulatory workout as what we might call a super stimulus,
Hmm.
right? In how we evolved, we probably were used to, cool temperatures at night, warm temperatures during the day, right? Sauna is a super stimulus of that, right? It's really hot and then it's really cold, right? And
I
it's
already,
kind of this.
yes, Ashley, I got the title for your presentation at Sauna Days. Can
Hmm,
I throw it
what is
at
it?
you? Breaking the Narrow Band with Ashley Mason.
Sure, sure.
Okay,
I would
let's.
you could do that. I mean, it could also be warming up to, like, I like my title that
Mhm.
I spin off of my, like, warming up to a new paradigm. I think,
Ooh, it is beautiful.
it's
Hmm.
I think that looking at that would be an interesting thing to do. The issue is there's not a whole lot of data on it. So I
Hmm.
could talk about how I arrive at this hypothesis. And then I think that talking about the depression studies that have been done and how we've seen temperature and depression co-vary, right?
Hmm.
Um, there's so much health literature out there, and I'll go back to the cells for a
Right.
second, which is,
Hmm.
we've got all this data on heat shock proteins and longevity and all of these different cardiovascular effects of sauna and blood pressure. I mean, these are all out there, and I'm happy to summarize that research. I think it's really great, but do I measure those things a ton in my lab? No. We did collect blood from these last two studies, and I look forward to seeing what the blood show. But when you have such small samples of people, it's
Hmm.
hard because there's so much variability between people in our biologies, right? And what's in our blood. But
Hmm.
I'm happy to talk about some of those other health effects. But what we do know is that there's a fair amount of those conclusions that have been drawn from epidemiological data. And I think one thing that I think would be useful to talk about with this crowd would be the difference between observational data over time, right? What we can learn from that versus what we can learn from a randomized design where we assign people to do different things. And there's different
Beautiful.
implications that we can draw from those
Wow.
types of studies,
Huge.
because a lot of people will point to, this wonderful series of studies done in Finland, the Jari Laukkanen study, but those are overwhelmingly all studies of the same sample of some 3,000 Finnish men who they asked
Yep.
them
Yep. Yep.
once,
Yep.
how
Yep.
often do you use the sauna? And then they measured them over decades, right?
Hmm.
So there's a lot of methodological issues with that. And there's only certain levels of certainty and conclusions we can draw. Whereas if you take a study like what Chuck did in 2016, and he randomized people to either get this heat or not get this heat, and then you look at what happens, you could draw much stronger conclusions from that. So I think we need to be cautious with how we look at data in this sphere, because we don't want to, this is not a flash in the pan, this is not a hype, it's been around for thousands of years. Let's talk about what we really can draw from the data, and then the data we really still need to collect in order to test what we think
Beautiful.
is true.
Oh man, I think the challenge is going to be the length of your presentation. I
How long
mean,
are the talks?
well, let's see, maybe 30 minutes, but
That's great. I love a
yeah.
30-minute talk. I
Hmm.
talk fast. Buckle your seatbelt.
Okay. And then the cool thing is you don't have to stop because we'll be on the sauna benches and in the cold lake, and Ashley will be going on, and follow Ashley
Watch
from
out.
sauna to sauna. She won't
Oh,
stop.
man.
That's cool. So mobile saunas are kind of a thing. If you could have a mobile sauna and take it anywhere in the world, and enjoy that experience, is there a spot in the world that comes to mind that you would like to bring a mobile sauna?
Oh my gosh. If I could bring a mobile sauna somewhere, I mean, Big Sur is beautiful.
Mm, yeah.
Just a drive away.
Yeah.
Don't need to
And
go real far.
right on the beach?
The Sure. Or, out in the mountains, Sierras,
Mm,
or up in Utah by Provo.
yeah. So in
All
any
beautiful.
yes, in any one of those places, if you could sauna with one other person, dead or alive, past, present, who's the first person that comes to mind
Oh
who you'd like to sit
no.
on the bench with?
Oh gosh, I'd bring my dad back from the dead. Probably
Yeah.
take my dad. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. I think he would
Lovely.
have loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Um, say it's a sauna day for you, right? You're going to Oh, a shout out to Alchemy.
Alchemy?
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful sauna.
So
Beautiful.
say you wake up and you're going there, or
Mm,
say, what I'm distilling, what I'm trying to get at is someone who saunas like you do, and someone who's
mhm,
deeply into the research.
mhm,
I want to talk about, like, or I'm going to get from you your favorite moments from when you wake up to when you go to bed, and it's a sauna day. Is it the
mm.
anticipation, the going, the first moment on the bench, the first water on the rocks, the first cool down? If you were to kind of pick a moment, what's your favorite?
Mm. I love it when we're on the way there and we haven't yet had to find parking,
Yeah.
but we know we're going.
Yes. Yes. The
That's a great.
anticipation.
That's great. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. And for
I
that
like that.
that goes for me as well. I mean, I'm such a nut. I sauna 3, 4 times a week. I certainly would love to
Wow.
do it every day, but it's almost like this is too good. I kind of let a day kind of go where I
Hmm.
don't, so that when I wake up the
Hmm.
next day and I know it's a sauna day, I have that little, it's almost like a childlike giddiness, like I'm going to the, playground or something. There's
Hmm.
a this, so I hear you. The anticipation is a great place
Hmm.
to be. Is there
Hmm.
anything you want to speak about that we haven't spoken with? Anything? I mean, you know the audience. This is Sauna Talk. Is there anything you want me to ask you, or you ask me, or that we haven't covered?
No, I mean, I think we've done a great job. I hope that no one skewers me for my language. I really do respect the definition of sauna, but I also use the word to try and explain what heat is sometimes to people in ways that are understandable to them. Um, Similarly, I hope the biological people don't skewer me because I do think cells are interesting. I think blood's interesting. But at the end of the day, I'm really interested on people's lived experiences. I'm much more interested in hearing from people about how they feel than I
Mm,
am understanding what's going on in their muscles or
mm,
cells.
yeah. Yeah.
And there are people who are more interested in the cells than what people feel, and that's fine. That's just, we need to complement each other in the research, right? I think that there's something to be said for doing community-based research, and I do really think it's important, and I would love to do it. I just don't have the ability to do it. So I understand the criticism of the work that I do as, somewhat devoid of where sauna evolved from. I hear that. And that's why I just say, look, I'm one really at the bottom rung of doing heat therapies research and seeing
Mhm.
what's here. Um, and I think that doing this kind of research will help eventually garner more support for the practice as a whole, a
Lovely.
social event in
Hmm.
nature, et cetera, et cetera. But
Hmm.
I think that first figuring out, um, you know, the roles of people's experience in the heat that isn't necessarily the full thing yet is is important to selling this as
Yeah.
not sick care but actual health care.
Lovely. And a big thank you to what you're dedicating yourself toward. I mean, we all know that there is a mental health, you know, epidemic going on. And what a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful thing to be able to get rid of the pills for people and prescribe something that is natural, like you
Mm-hmm.
referenced, been around thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
We need this work. People need this work to validate what we as sauna enthusiasts know and love. And I want to
Mm-hmm.
thank you. You and Chuck getting going, and you specifically for your tenacious energy and passion in this space. It's so great to visit with you, Ashley, today. And
Mm-hmm.
thank you for your great work. It's
Oh, well, thank you
wonderful.
for having me. It's a
Yeah,
pleasure. I'm really glad to be connected, and I'm looking forward to meeting folks at Sauna Days.
right on to that one, Ashley. Thanks again, and enjoy. And we'll be on the bench soon. I'm looking forward to it.